Hey everyone, so this is a continuation of our Node Express handlebar tutorial, and in this one I will be adding some Mongo DB to it. The database that I will be using is Mongo DB, so you can go here to sign up. I'll step you through on how to set up the database on this. It's a free website right here, mongodb.com. You can sign up, create a database for free and connect to it and do all the testing that you want. So I'll step through that. But right now, here's my repository at GitHub, github.com/Codr Kai. And if you want to follow along, I have the Node Express handlebar project that you can download and use. You know what I'll do is I will show you how I do it right here when I do a GitHub on this. I'm in Visual Studio Code right now, and I'm going to open up my terminal here. And if you found this video because you're trying to connect a MongoDB to your project, you can follow along easily by just watching how I do things. Or if you are a beginner, I really suggest that you watch my first tutorial on this whole project on Node and installing Express handlebars. You can do right now git clone and then paste in that URL that we just copied right there at my GitHub. It's right here where you click on code and then you just copy it to your clipboard. You can either do it that way or you can do it this way that I'm going to do right now with a different git command. Now I have a sandbox right here, and here's the previous app, Node Handlebars app. So it's all in there, but I'm going to do a git command to get my project so that I can put into a different folder. And I have this one called Node Express MongoDB. So I'm going to drag this in here. It's going to open up my folder for me right here. And then the command that I'm going to use is this. I'm going to do git init inside of this folder that I just opened up. So git init, and then I'm going to do git remote add origin, and then we're going to paste in that URL that we just had right there, right? Now that is my remote address for the repository. Then I'm going to do a git fetch. It's going to fetch all the files there. Now it's telling me there's some branches in here, right? So I'm going to do a git checkout -b master -- track origin / master. So there we go. I just checked out my project that I downloaded from GitHub right there. So, you know, there's two different methods. If you are a beginner, just do a git clone on it and paste in the address, and, you know, to make it easy and just work on it for now. All right, so the first thing we need to do is an Npm install, because we need to install all of our package dependencies right here in here, because all we did was do a git on this to get our project, but it didn't install all these dependencies. So we need to do an Npm install right here. It's going to download everything that we need for this project. And you'll notice right here, after we did the npm install, it created this node modules folder that put all of the packages in there. Okay, so since this project is going to use MongoDB, we need to install that. So we need to do npm install Mongoose. And also I need to install a .environment right here, .env. So let's install those two things right now. And then if you open up the package right here, you'll see that it installed Mongoose. This is MongoDB. And then also the .env. So I want to show you this little trick right here. If you are using a MacBook or the Mac OS, you'll want to hold Command Shift and then the period, because that will show hidden files. And you'll notice right here, this .git file right here, this is hidden because we need to create an environment file. So create a new file in here called .env. Now this is a hidden file, and if you go back to the folder right here, you see it's kind of grayed out right there, right? So if I hold Command Shift and period again, see, it disappears because it's a hidden file. And inside the .env file right here, let's add in db_URI equals. And so I'm creating this because this will be our connection string to our database that we're going to set up right now. I just want to set this up. Let's save that. And we're going to go get our connection string. We're going to paste it in here. And that's how we connect to our database. All right, so let's go to MongoDB right now. MongoDB.com. Like I said, create a new account. It's totally free. And I'm going to step you through this right now. So when you first create a MongoDB account, it's going to ask you to create a new database cluster. It's called like a node cluster. I called mine just node cluster. Or you can just go up right here to this button that says create. You click on that and it's going to create this whole new database right here, right? Call it anything you want. You know, your project DB, but mine is called node cluster. And then you want to click on this connect button right here. After you click on that, go to connect your application right here, and then select your node, you know, that has different versions, whatever. Copy this right here. This is what you want to copy. So Command C, copy that, or click this icon right here to copy it, close it, and then let's go back to our project right here, and we're going to paste this in, right? But you notice right here we need a username and password, so we're going to create that right now. Let's go back here and let's go to database access. See, everything is on the left right here. We're in database right here for this. We're going to go to database access right now. So you'll see that I have 2 database access to this. I'm going to create a new one for this project. Add new database user. I'm going to use a password. So I'm going to call this HBS and HBS 143. You can also auto generate a secure password. That's probably better. And I want this to read and write to any database. And then I'm going to make this a temporary user in case I forget, because this is only going to work for this today. That's it. So that I can do this project, add user. Now here we go, HBS user added. And so let's go and add that user into our environment right here. So we called it HBS and then HBS 143. One last thing we need to do is my first database right here. We need to tell it what database to connect to. So we're going to go and create this right now. Let's go in here. And one more thing I want to mention about this is when I first created a Mongo DB database, I couldn't connect to it because I was at a Starbucks working on a project. And if you're in a public area, you want to go here to network access and add in this IP right here because you need to whitelist it. You need IP access list right here. This is telling it that you're allowing it to connect to your database from what IP. So if you're in a public area, like at a coffee shop working on this, put this in. It's all zeros. But if you do want to be more secure and limit it to your own IP access at home, then put in your own IP right here. All right, let's go back to our database here. And I'm going to say browse collections right here because our database will have collections. And you notice that I created a bunch of collections in here. These are my Node database projects. Here is our Netflix one, Twitter clone, all that. So I created this new database right here. Click on create database, and I created this one called Netflix. And you'll see that I added a bunch of tables in here, but the main tables you want to focus on here are the movies right here. You'll see how I added this, and I added in a bunch of columns right here that says title, image, description, the same thing as our previous project. It has all the info on these movies that I can pull. Film location, year release, see all that, entry date, genre. So, and then I also have this genre right here. See genre. And I have a genre table right here that looks like this. Just has a name of like what type of genre it is, comedy, horror, documentary. I also have a sign up right here, sign up. And this is where they can enter in the email to sign up from our first project. And I just have an entry date. So to give you a refresher, I'm going to run this project right here, npm start. And this is what our previous project looked like, right? It's a Netflix clone that has a email address where they can submit and sign up, right? So that's where we have this sign up right here, this sign up table, and all it's taking in is an email address. And then I just timestamp it when the email gets submitted. So I know when that person submitted an email. That's for that. And then all of this right here with the description and everything, you know, you click on it, it has all the description for the movies. That goes in this table right here called movies. And you'll see right here, it has a title, right? Image, description, year release, film location. Right here, title, description. Here's the link to the image, year release, film location. So that's how it looks like in my table right here with all this. And then I just have some of these other ones that I was messing around with. Oh yeah, and then the genre, right? Genre, we're gonna link it right here. It has a name and an object ID. And the genre links to our movies right here, because it also has a genre with an object ID right here, and that just links together. So in this project, I'm going to show you how to do that, how to pull information from these tables and how to pull them where they're linked together as well, where you can join them together and match them up. And so for this table right here, I inserted it by clicking on insert document, and then I just put in each field, right? So getting back to it, our database right here that we created, I called it node_Netflix, right? So let's go back to our environment right here, and we need to set my first database right here. This is going to be called node_Netflix. That's our database name so that it can connect to this database. And then we're good. We're going to save this right here, and we don't need this environment file anymore. And then we are going to connect to our Mongo DB right now. So how do we do that? Well, we need to do a var mongoose equals require mongoose. And then we're also going to require our .env/config file right here. This requires this .env file. And it's kind of strange how we call it this way, but that's how you require this file right here to use it. And then I'm going to connect to our database down here after all of this right here. DB connection is right here. And you do mongoose.connect. This is really basic. There is a connection string that you can copy and paste, but I'll just step through it. Process.env.db URI. So right here, we're using our .environment file, right? Using the DB URI that's in here. Here's the DB URI. We're calling that right there. So that connects to the connection string. And then really you can just copy and paste these next values in here because this connection string is just basic and it's provided for everyone. And really, it's just this bracket, use new URL parser is true. Use unified topology is true. All right, so then we're going to say .then and arrow function. And then we're going to console log this, .log. And we're going to say DB connected. And then we're going to catch any errors here. I'll just console log this if there's an error. So that is our connection right here. Now, if I do a npm start, we'll say database not connected. All right, what did I do wrong here? Require is not found. I mistyped this require up here. Where did I do that? Right here, require. How did I do that? Okay, so save that and let's rerun this so that we can see that we connect to our database. You see that? Database connected. So we did the correct database string, connection string, so that we can connect to our node Netflix right here. Let's stop this server. And now we're going to close this right here because we're fully done with this app.js. We've connected to our database. We need to create our schema, our database schema. So create a new folder and we're going to call this models right inside the root. Inside our models here, we need a new file. And this is going to be called schemas.js. Now this schema, we're using our database. So var mongoose equals require mongoose. And then we need to activate the schema. Var schema equals mongoose.schema, uppercase S. Okay, so don't forget that. And guess what we're going to add as a schemas? Our database tables. We're going to need one for movies. We have one for genre. And then we had a sign up, right? So those are the tables that we need to create right now. Let movies schema equals new schema. Just like that, we're going to create a new schema. So I always like to close things up so I don't forget. And so remember, this is going to mimic our movie schema right here. You see how we have this ID we don't need to call. This is auto-generated by Mongo DB here. But we need to create these right here that we added in. Title, image, description, year, film, location, right? So let's go back here and we're going to put in title. And this is a type string and we're going to require this. It's like that for every field that you enter in, okay? And we're going to do an image. Now you don't have to tell it what type of string or what right here because I think that is set by default. But I like to type it in here because it lets me know and any other programmers know that look at this, that it is a type string. Description, type string, required, true, year released. So right here, I'll just do a type string on this and that's it. Film location and type string. Everything is type string. Entry date. Now this is a type date. And we're going to default it so that we don't have to enter it in to now. Anytime a new item gets entered into our database here, if you're doing an insert and all that, it will just set the date to now instead of you telling it what date. Genre. This is the interesting one. Type schema.types.object ID. And we're going to reference that to our genre table. So that's how you reference and join things here. We're going to have a genre table down here, and it is a type of schema.types object ID. This is an object ID. It's just putting in an ID here to reference to this table that we're going to create over here. So let's create our genre table. Let genre schema equals new schema. Name type string required true. All right, the last one. Let sign up schema equals new schema. Email, it is a type string. Required, yes. Entry date, I want to know when this email was entered in. And same thing as up here, you know, you can just copy it if you want, paste it here just like that. So now we need to create the models here. Let movies equals mongoose.model, and we need to give it its name, movies, reference it to the schema, and give it an alias name so that we can just call this when we're working on it. So that's how you create this model right here for this movie schema right there. And go ahead and copy this because we're going to create a model for each one of them. We need a genre and a sign up. Genre, sign up. And of course you need to change these two as well. All right, movies, genre, sign up. Now I need to combine this so that I can export it. So I'm going to say let my schemas equals, say I'm going to create a list of these. Movies, genre, and sign up. Just like that. See, I combined it into one variable here so that I can export it. So let's say module.exports equals my schemas. And so once we create this up, think of it as this thing will link to our database tables right here, right? It's going to link to each individual one. And now I can use this in our project and I can call update, I can call insert, I can call delete, and it knows because it's linked to each table and its fields and all that. I can pull this information, display it, I can do all that. All we have to do is set up the schema and then we're good. It's linked to our table. So let's just save this and close it up. Okay, so we're gonna jump right into this. We're gonna display our movie info. So we need to work with our routes right here. We have index.js, and I'm going to open up the index.hbs, the handlebar file. You notice that everything is hard-coded. And if we go back here and see how things are displayed right here, this is our homepage, right? You see how it has this carousel right here? You can click through it, just a simple carousel. It has all these items. These are hard-coded links, right, on the homepage, the index. So you look at here, index on the handlebar. See all these are those links right here, hard coded in, but we want to pull all this from the database now. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's inside index right here. When you go to homepage right here, we're going to modify this index to now connect to our schema that we created. So we need to do a var schemas equals require. And we're going to go out one folder, right? We're inside our routes folder right here. We're going to go out one and we're going to go into our models folder. That's how you call it, models right here. And then we need to call the schemas file right here. See, schemas in there. Now you can do .js if you want, or you can leave that out. It's all up to you. But now that we included this, we can use that database now. So let's go here and I'm going to modify this. Let's say let movies equals schemas .movies. So what I'm trying to do is connect to our database, get all of the items in there, all that data, so that we can display it in this row right like that. But I'm going to get all that data and put it into one variable so we can use it. So let's say let movies result equals, oh wait, this is like querying our database here, movies.find. And if I do this open close bracket, it's going to find all the movies in our database. Then we're going to execute that. Air and movies data. See, this movies data, this is what it's returning if it finds the data. And then arrow function, we're going to close this up. So this is what it's saying. It's saying, let's query our database. You know, I'm going to wait for it right here. Oh, also, if I'm doing an await right here, I need to make this an async function, right? So we're going to call this async. And I'm going to convert this to an arrow function. A lot easier to read for me. So that's the thing. Anytime you're doing an await on something, that you want to wait for the results to finish before it keeps going. You know, this is going to be asynchronous, goes through, it's going to wait for this to find all the data inside our database. And then it's going to return that inside our movies data variable. Now I'm going to say if it found it, if movies data, then render this, response.render. If there's any results, we're going to render the index handlebar right here, right? This index handlebar, this is where we're going to display our data. We're going to modify this right here. So I want to render that handlebar page. And we still have a title in here. We called it Netflix clone. You don't have to have this if you don't want to. And then now let's return that data from our movies data. See, I'm returning a variable called data so we can work with it inside our handlebar page here. I'm calling it data, and I'm pulling what data? This movie data. I'm returning this movie data, but I want to call it data for me to use it. And then I also have an email address. This is for the sign up thing, and I'm just defaulting that to empty. And you see how easy that is? I just pulled from our database. I'm looking through all the results, and I'm just going to render whatever page I want. And I want to render our index page because this is loading our home page. When we click on the home page, it's going to route this right here. It's going to look through our database, get all the results, and it's going to find that data, render our index page here, the index handlebar, and then return this movies data into a variable called data for us to use. So I don't need this anymore right here. Let's go back to our handlebars here. And so I'm going to modify this now, and instead of hard coding all of this here, I'm going to remove all this. I'll show you right here. We just have the wrapper and a section right here, right? Section. And then we have an arrow actually. This arrow thing is this button right here. See this arrow where I can click on it and scroll through? That's the arrow button right there. So I'm going to keep that arrow button. And actually, like, this thing will go to section 1. And then I'm going to also have another arrow button at the end, right? This is the left arrow button, this is the right arrow button. Everything in between that is an item. Those are each movie item. And so we're going to repeat through this. We're going to say each data. See, here's our data that we just returned from our index route right here. We returned this movie data, so we're going to use that. For each of them, we're going to loop through. Let's end the each. Now we're going to loop through, and we need to set the link, right? So how do we call that? Well, I'm routing it to a new route called movies. Like we have another movies route here, right? To show the details on it. But then I have a special ID. We're going to call the object ID right here. Movies with the object ID. Because you'll see later how I can use this object ID to find that a movie inside our database, the specific ID for that item, and pull more details on that movie. So this is just a link to it. And then we also have a link to the image, right? So let's put in the image here. And you just call it like that, image. Just like that. So that's all it is to our little carousel here. It has an image. It has a link ID. If you look down on the bottom left, you know, right there. Let's see if I can hover right there. You'll see that it has that link to it. 1, 2, 3. So I'm giving it a specific ID now, which is our database ID. So we can find it when I click on it. And then this is the image. That's what's showing the image right there. I have a link to in our database to that specific image. If we go to our database right here, you see image. So I have a link to that specific image. So that's all it takes to loop through that, and I'll save it right now. And let's run this right now. I'll show you how it's going to populate it. So I'll do npm start. And I have an error right here, missing after argument list. And it's right here. I forgot to end this arrow function right there. Save that. All right, so I had another error right here. If we go into our model schemas file right here, schemas.js, always be careful with your typing because I didn't spell this correctly. I forgot an S right here. So movies, and that's what it's using right here for my movies to pull the data. Always check your spelling. Now let's go and run our server again, npm start, and it's going to start right up right there. And then let's go back to our home page here, refresh, and you'll see that, it's populating all of this from our database here, all this that I entered in here. So if you look in the bottom left right here, you'll see that it has the URL /movies/ID. You see how each ID is different? That ID is from our database right down here. You see that? So if I go to our database here, you'll see that it has this object ID with this ID string. So that's the ID that it's pulling in for our link right here. Now that we have all this linked together, I need to have this where I can click on it and it's going to show me details about this movie. So for this one, we're going to go into the details so that I can show the title, description, and all that info. So let's go back to our code here, stop the server. So let's go and get the description. I'm going to close these out so that it doesn't get all cluttered. And now we're going to work with the movies route, and we're going to go to movies handlebars right here. And same thing in here, we need to include our schema equals require. Watch for my spelling. Movies schemas.js. And you'll notice that, you see, we grab the ID from our link, and I'm getting the ID right here, so that's fine. So we're going to replace this whole thing right here. So I'll just comment that out. And let's do a let movies equals schemas.movies. This is called models, actually. There we go. And then let movie data equals, oh wait, movies.find one. Because we're going to look up only one movie, and we're using the ID. So this is the ID we need to compare from our ID from the database, and then the ID that we just pulled from our link right here that we're grabbing from the parameter. And we're telling it to match up with that ID in our database and then populate. And we're populating the genre actually. So if we didn't have anything to join, then I wouldn't have this, but I'm telling it to populate the genre object. So there you go. We're looking up one movie using the ID, and then we're linking it to the genre. And then I'm going to say if movie data, we're going to response.render our movies page, our movies handlebar page right up here. And we're going to pass to it the data. So same thing, movie data. So this is what I'm calling it to pass through. And this is our movie data right here that we just looked up right here. So if there is data, then we're passing it through. Otherwise, we're going to response.end it and just say invalid request. And so remember that when we use this await, we need this to be asynchronous. And I'm converting this to a arrow function. So you see, it's really doing all this right here. It's getting me the data so that I don't have to do this whole setup with this data variable. This is all just hard coded. So we're going to remove this now. We're going to save this. Then we're going to go to our movies handlebar right here. See, because we're rendering the movies handlebar page. We're going to go here. Now that we have the data, all of this really is the same thing. You see how I pass through data? Now I just call it data.image because it's the same thing. I passed through this data right here that we got all of our movie data. I passed it through and I called it data, and it's just the same thing. We have an image in here. We have a title, data.title, data.description. We don't have a data.extra though. So I'm going to remove this. This was our old code. And then this now is really data.year released, but we spelled it differently in our database, year released. And then this is data.film location. And then guess what? We also added a genre, right? Genre. And in here is called data.genre.name. And I'll show you why we called it that. So let me save that. Let's go back to our genre database here. And if you look inside genre right here, see our genre table, we have this name. So that's how I'm calling it, because we linked it together with our movie data, and then I joined the genre table, and then I'm getting the genre name. Let's save this, and we're gonna run this right now. Npm start. I hope there's no errors. Okay, connected. Let's go back here to our Netflix clone. I'm gonna refresh this page. Now, any type of ID I click on here, let's go to Add TV right here. I click on it, and you see it pulled all of this from the database. No more hard coding. Everything is from the database. Genre, see how it linked up the genre? Comedy. If I go back home here, let's go to this one, right? Genre, horror. See, film location has all the description. Everything is linked together. Ted Bundy. Yeah, that is a documentary. You see, everything is all dynamic now. Comedy. So all this works great now. And you see how powerful that was for us to query our database, grab the info, pass it to our handlebar page right here, and then use it in this variable right here. So it just grabbed everything that we needed and we passed it through and we used it. So let's finish up our last part here, which is our sign up page. If you look through right here on our home page, we have an email sign up, and how that works is when you enter in an email, and then when we submit this, we're going to save this email to our database and timestamp it. So let's do that right now. So with our sign up page here, we're using the index.js file, right? We have index.js and index handlebars right here. Because with our sign up page, you notice that we're in the home page here for our sign up form, which is using our index page. And then when we submit that, it still stays within the index home page here. We're just submitting it right back to our home page. So in our scenario here, we're only using our index and the index handlebars here. So here is the sign up, right? Our index home page sign up. Here's the form. And then we have the name of email input. And then we submit it, and we're submitting it through an action called sign up. And then we're posting it. We're posting this input to our sign up page. So let's go back here. And right here, this is where we're capturing it. We're in the home page. When it posts, we're posting it to the home page called sign up. And then we're going to capture that email. And then right down here, we're going to save it. We already include our schema because we were working with our movies data right up here. So let's do a let sign up equals schemas.signup. We're using this sign up table now inside that schema. And then we're going to say let sign up exists. We're going to await sign up dot find one. And then we're looking up that email. Now I'm going to talk about why I'm doing this. Execute this. And we're doing an async on this error. It's going to return an error or the result. So why did I do this first? Well, like in any email form, you want to find out if the user submitted an email already. I'm looking up that email inside our database with this field right here, email, and I'm saying, hey, is there an email in our database already? If there is an email, then I'm not going to save it. But if there is not, I'm going to say if there's no result right here, it's going to return a result, right? I'm going to say if there's no result, let new email equals new schemas.signup email. I'm setting this new email variable right here to the new schema that we have in here. Let's go back to our models. We have the schemas, right? See, inside our sign up schema, all we have is the email field. So I'm telling it, hey, assign to that field our new email that we just picked up right here inside our email input in the body. And then I'm going to say save it. Let's save the email now. And we're going to wait on this new email dot save. And that is how easy it is to save an email result. So I'm going to wait and save it. You know, it's going to return back a result if you want to check for that to see if everything is saved okay or not, or there's an error. But I'm just doing it really simple right now. I'm just going to save it and move on. And then after it does the email save, it's still on the home page. So you know what else we have to do? We have to load our movies again. So I'm going to copy this whole thing up here where we loaded our movies. Because after we save an email, remember the page hasn't loaded anything yet. It's just saving to our database and our home page is blank. So we need to grab movies. We need to display it again right here. And then after I display all this, I also need to pass back the email up here that we grabbed. So that is all we need for this sign up page right here. I'm going to save this and I'm going to run this and we're going to test it out. So I'll show you my database right now. Here's the sign up document right here, or table sign up, and you notice that there's no entries in here. And that's the cool thing about Mongo DB documents, that you can have this fully empty. You don't have to set up the fields or anything like that. And then when I save this, it's going to enter in that document for me with all the correct fields and everything. So that is the cool thing about it. Let's run this npm start. Okay, so I have an error. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Anytime you use an await, you need it to be asynchronous. So let's convert all these to async like that. And I believe that's all that I need. So let's clear this, npm start. And there we go. Let's go to our home page here, refresh. Our movies are loaded. And remember, our database is empty right now in signup. So I'm going to sign up right now, and I'll put in Codr Kai. I'm going to submit this, and you see it went to the home page. It submitted it. It's like, thank you for signing up, and then it loaded all of the movies, just like right here that we did. See, it submitted it, it saved our email, and then it loaded the movies. So let's see our database now to see if it saved it. So I'm going to refresh this. Click on sign up, and right here it is. It inserted the ID, the email, Codr Kai, entry date. You see how it just automatically created the entry date because of our schema. I told it to just default to the entry date. And that is how you save data into our database. See how simple that is. So yeah, MongoDB has all those functions that you need. It has save, it has update, it has delete, it has everything that you need, modify, or whatever it's called. And it makes it really simple to save to the database in here because it's just a document. Without setting up the fields that you need, you only need to create the database here with the tables, and then it'll create all this as long as you set up your schema right up here. Inside the schema right here is where you're telling it what fields you want, and it'll do all the work for you. So you see how simple that is to work with MongoDB, and it's very powerful. You see how we join things right here. This thing is just very powerful to use. So I believe that's it for this tutorial. I've showed you how to connect to MongoDB, how to enter in the connection strings, set it all up, how to query our database, set up MongoDB database, access it, set up users in here, how to set up your nodes, database, and tables, and then how to insert some documents. Inserting a document is just inserting, columns and fields in here, inserting the data, saving to it. You want to test out the other functions that it has to update, delete. You can just give that a try. It's very simple. So if you do a search for node and MongoDB, will show you all of these ways to search a database, finding one, finding all, populating it, joining it, doing all that, and then it just executes it. And then you return that data to work inside our handlebar page here. And it's very simple. As you see right here, it's just return the data, and then you can just work with that data. So yeah, this concludes the last part of this tutorial with Node and Handlebars using the HBS version of the handlebar and connecting to a MongoDB. If you do want to learn more about other databases, I have a tutorial with Node and React using MySQL database, and you can review that if you like. Please subscribe and stay tuned, and give this video a like so that I can share with other people looking up these type of videos that can help them out. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I will see you in the next one. Codr Kai out.